North American and this is the book, Slow Death by Rubber Duck. And first and foremost, everyone asks us, why the rubber duck? And the rubber duck is our sort of icon or symbol for a number of reasons. First of all, people think of ducks as being, friendly, something that you give your child, something that's very, safe. Rubber ducks are also everywhere, everywhere in the world you see little rubber ducks. Sesame Street, of course, made rubber ducks famous. What people don't realize is that rubber ducks, in fact, the ones that we think of typically aren't made of rubber, they're made of vinyl. And there's a chemical in the rubber duck called phthalates, and that chemical actually makes the rubber duck soft and rubbery. Otherwise it would be hard and plasticky. So in that chemical phthalates, as with most of the chemicals that we talk about in the book, is now linked to a number of health effects, primarily health effects in children. So we chose the rubber duck because toxic chemicals are also everywhere. Toxic chemicals are also found in a huge range of products that you wouldn't typically think that they're in. And that's really one of the messages that we have in the book, is that typically if I asked you, for example, I'll ask you, so what is the first thing that you think of when you think of pollution? So the air, you think of smokestacks, you think of big pipes of effluent going into rivers. People think of pollution as something that's out there. It's not really around us. You think of our homes as being safe, as our bedrooms are safe, our beds are safe. We like to think of our bathrooms as safe and clean places to go. But really, more and more, partly because we've been successful at cleaning up a lot of the external pollution, more and more the pollution is in fact in our everyday products, in our food, and in our homes, and ultimately the pollution gets into our bodies. So a big part of the book is about this whole shift in thinking of pollution and chemicals from not so much being out there, but being in us. Rick, my co-author, and I actually did a little experiment on ourselves. And this comes from work that we were doing in Canada, where we were testing the blood of Canadians, and we tested politicians, we tested artists, famous Canadians, we tested average families, and we found that people had typically between 100 and 200 different known toxic chemicals in their bodies. And this, of course, shocked a lot of people. And they all asked us, well, how did that get into us? And I'm going to get into that in a minute. But the thing that we did when Rick and I sat down, we talked about writing the book, and of course we knew we would have to test our own blood and find out what was in our blood. And then Rick said, I think somewhat jokingly, well, rather than just test our own blood, why don't we expose ourselves to some of these products and test our blood before and test our blood after, and maybe we can watch the chemicals increasing in our own blood. And so I was like, I'm not so sure about that. Anyway, that's what we in fact did. So we locked ourselves into a condo for a few days, and we did all these experiments. And we tested our blood before, we tested our blood during, and we tested our blood after, blood or urine. And we had it all. We had a nurse doing it all. We had experts from universities around the world that we had them review the test protocols. And then the samples were sent to specific laboratories around North America that specialized in measuring these chemicals. Mercury, my favorite chemical. I basically ate 7 meals over 3 days, included things like tuna sandwiches, tuna sushi, tuna steak. And in that period, my mercury levels went up 2.5 times. It was more than 2.5 times, almost 3 times. And I tend to eat a fair bit of fish anyway. It's sort of the main protein in my diet. And so I was already starting off with reasonably high levels. So I actually got to the point where I was above what's considered safe in terms of mercury blood levels. We usually like to remind people that it actually is a hopeful book. It isn't a negative book. We're trying very hard. I know it sounds hard to believe that it could be hopeful. We're trying very hard not to scare people when we're writing the book. So it's actually written in a fairly light-hearted tone. We've got lots of references to everyday life and everyday things that people do. And in virtually all of the chapters, there's a hopeful story about how things are changing. Okay, well, thank you very much.